To Dr. Ahmed YouTube channel. This video is being recorded for the benefit of my students, and the topic of today's video is going to be approaches to discourse analysis. What are the different ways, approaches, or the means to analyze discourse, how we can reach to the right meanings, what are different popular approaches. There may be many, but in this video only some of those approaches which are mostly known and worked and practiced that are going to be discussed in this video. This is an introductory video, so there will be only an introduction because of this short span of the video. There may be detailed discussions in certain books and journals that may be consulted by the students. First of all, we need to know what is language and what is discourse and why it is done. So, as it is said, learning to use the analysis of language to solve real life problems at work, at school, and at home. So that is going to be one of the basic messages of the approaches to discourse analysis, that we are trying to learn about language, how it should be used in order to solve different problems, different things which are happening around us and we are unable to understand because of the language issues. The study of the discourse is done in order to do all these things. This can also be called theory and practical application of language, of linguistics, of discourses as well. So the basic concept behind that is how to utilize language as good as possible in order to achieve the desired results and purposes so that the solutions of the humanity may be solved out. So for this purpose, first of all, try to understand what is discourse through the help of different methodologies and the theories given by the linguist and discourse analyst. For example, first of all, Stubbs' definition given in 1998 says discourse is language above the sentence level or above the clause. This cannot exist in isolation, just in the shape of the word or the clause. In order to have a good discourse, we need to have at least above the level of the clause, or it can be a one sentence at least, which should become discourse. It is because the meaningful utterance and meaning understanding is not possible unless we have a full sentence or unless we have set of sentences conveying the idea towards us. Same is the case with Fasold, who said in 1990 that the study of discourse is the study of any aspect of language use. So Fasold says that it is not language, it's the aspect of language, but in what sense? In the use sense, how we are using language, the way we can use it is called discourse according to Fasold. And then comes Brown and Yule, who gave the definition in 1983. They say the analysis of discourse is the analysis of language and use. So again, they are supporting the idea given by Fasold that it is about the language use. It cannot be restricted to description of linguistic forms, independent of the purposes or functions that they serve in human affairs. So the basic purpose is to let the people know that what is the linguistic function and the purpose of using any specific mode of language or the style of language in order to understand the affairs of humanity. So discourse is doing all these things, and more comes about discourse when we talk of Fairclough. For example, Fairclough said in 1992, discourse is for me more than just language and use. So he goes one step ahead by saying that it is, of course, language use, whether speech or writing. It can be in both forms. It can be spoken also, it can be written also, seen as a type of social practice. According to him, this discourse is a social practice. It's not simply the linguistic practice, it is the social practice. How, for example, he further says, a discourse constitutes a social discourse is shaped by the relation of power and invested with ideologies. So two points were more important for him. For example, first of all, it was a relation to power. So anybody who speaks and writes anything, it is with respect to the power relation which he is having, not with the people, but what kind of power he wants to tell the people it is there. And same is the case with the investing of ideologies, whatever the ideology may be having, someone like a capitalistic ideology, communistic ideology, social ideology. He says, Fairclough says that if language is being used to propagate that ideology and with respect to power relation, then the analysis of discourse is called the discourse analysis, or the use of this type of language is the discourse or discourse analysis. Similarly, we therefore can reach to the different kind of understanding about the discourse. The previous pages suggested that it's the words which are used in a sentence in order to convey a particular meaning with respect to the power and with respect to the ideology one is propagating. The writer says that there could be another form of discourses, that is, if we are thinking in a specific way, behaving in a specific way, believing in a specific way, that is also the type of discourses. So, as for example, discourse of medicine, discourse of romance, these are the discourses which possibility do not carry in type of ideology, but they are the discourses which are there in the shape of the behaviors or the actions which we are doing. So discourse can be about one's way of behaving with the things, or showing some type of behavior along with the words which one uses. Language is used by that person in a specific way. So discourse is basically about the codes of language, as the picture goes to show. It is then about the ways of speaking also, and after that it's the way of acting as well. Then it's a kind of relationship attached to that, and genre activity types also, and ultimately ideology. So there are 6 sectors of use of language which make it discourse. So when we say that discourse is there, it can be at least these 6 ways to talk about. That is the language codes, ways of speaking, ways of acting, and the kinds of relationship or the genre activity and ideology. All these things combined together in order to make a discourse. So discourse is how language reflects reality, how language creates reality, how language shapes our identities and interactions, how language is used as a tool to control people. So if language is used in any of these styles mentioned here, 4 styles, then it is discourse. So that's why we can ultimately say that the meaning depends on discourse, or the language use, the way language is used. I mean, how it is used, where it has been used, when it was used, for whom and to whom it was used, by whom it was used, and why it was used. So if these things are being considered, it can be discourse analysis as well. So discourse analysis, as this figure shows, is of many types. For example, it is first of all pragmatics. And that means the language which is used according to the situation, the style is changed. In a conversational analysis also, the way people give sequence to their sentences, the words, how and when it should be there, that is also one of the conversation analysis. It can be critical discourse analysis also, with respect to power, with respect to ideology. If it is, then it is critical discourse analysis. Then multi-modeling is also done with respect to discourse analysis. I mean, not only it is the language, but also the gestures, for example. These are also utilized in this multimodal discourse analysis. Then comes ethnography. I mean, the people, how they are born, where they're born, what is the particular characteristic of their ethnicity, characteristic of language. I mean, if it is seen with respect to that, it will also be discourse analysis. And then comes mediated discourse analysis. So all these are the approaches which are used in order to analyze the discourse, in order to understand what the real meaning is going to be. And so, first of all, pragmatics. The word comes from pragma, which means deed or doing the things. And this is therefore the study of meaning in different contexts of use, how language is used to do things in this word. I mean, if you are going to do something, you are going to request someone, or you're going to threaten someone, or you're going to create a particular impression on someone, at that time the pragmatics is there. So it means that language can be used in order to show the action which one wants to do. For example, if you want to ask a question, it's a particular way of the choice of words, it's a particular way of the utterance as well. If utterance has a particular style with which we understand the question is being asked, and the words are arranged in such a way that we understand the question is being asked, or somebody is negating that, if these things are done, it's also called speech act theory. That, I mean, people speak in such a way which means that the action is demanded, and that action is quite visible in the speech. Then is the conversational logic. I mean, how the conversation is conducted, who is speaking first and who is giving the time, and who is explaining and who is simply uttering, who is uttering the meaningless words, and who is uttering the complete sentences as well. So in that way, there are different ways with which the pragmatics is employed in order to analyze the discourse. So pragmatic is communication is doing things with words or sentences meaning versus speaking meaning. If this is being done, that is pragmatics definitely, and that's very much important approach to discourse analysis. Then is ethnography of communication, another approach to ethnography. For example, the writer says communication is a matter of cultural competence. I mean, there are two ways in order to not only think about but also to act about the culture, and that is the competency of a person to communicate with respect to his culture. And such a person therefore has to focus on things like setting, participant, the moods, and other kinds of behavioral rules. And therefore, if this approach is used, that can be done in order to analyze the discourse, how the person has spoken, to whom he has spoken, in what way that person has spoken, has he been able to communicate effectively or not. For example, we adapt special behavior when we go to complain to the certain superior or senior person. At that time, we have the style, that the way one can achieve the purpose. So therefore, this is also done with respect to your ethnography. I mean, with respect to communication, if we want to make it successful, or we want to have it become effective, and we want to get results out of that, then discourse can be analyzed with respect to that as well. And then is genre analysis. That approach is also used for the sake of analysis of discourse analysis. I mean, discourses are analyzed or can be analyzed with respect to that. Genre conventions are there. These are fixed, these are basic, these are classical, which are employed in order to, communicate with the people, and that is why it focuses on the structures of interaction, how we are, with whom we are interacting, and with respect to that, basic conventions are observed. So in that way, genre approach can also be used to, analyze discourse. And then there's the politeness theory. By politeness means that communication as a way of encoding social relationship. I mean, by politeness theory means that somebody, when talks to someone, at that time the discourse or the language used takes in such a way that we want to have a good relationship with that person. And that is why the focus can be on, for example, face threatening acts or face saving strategies. The things can be adopted, the styles can be adopted to talk to. That way of dealing with the discourses is called politeness. And then comes conversational analysis. We conversate with the people most of the time, converse with the people most of the time. Conversation is a joint activity. It can be sequential also, or it can be turn taking type of talk as well, and it can be managed very well. So discourse can be analyzed with respect to this conversation analysis also, conversation approach also, or conversation style also. So in that way, this is another approach to be employed in discourse analysis. Then it's the interactional sociolinguistics. We know very well that sociolinguistics is concerned about the use of language in the society, and it deals with the communication also in the way as a way of signaling social activities and social identities. It means that our way of speak, way of writing goes to indicate what activities are attached with that and what kind of social identities do they reflect. For example, the attention is put to the way the speaker uses certain strategies in order to let us know what is the signal for the activity, and then what kind of identity it goes to establish. So in this way, if this thing is happening, this is the approach which is termed as interactional sociolinguistics. So this is also one of the approaches to analyze discourse and to understand the meaning. Lastly, not that lastly, of course, critical discourse analysis is also there. That is the discourses when, or the communication when it is developed in order to exercise resistance power, that you want to show that you are resisting something. And the focus therefore comes on power relations and how these are increased or decreased, and it also goes to analyze or examine what is going to happen because of such a kind of behavior. So therefore we can say that discourse analysis then it can be conducted with the approach which is called critical discourse analysis as well. Then multimodal discourse analysis is also there. This is the kind of analysis where not only the focus is the word, but are also the gestures, the facial expressions, the postures, the proxemics and gaze and object handling, spatial layout, time and timing, all these things become important. So not only the words are required to be considered important or given significance in order to analyze any discourse. But alongside that, these 4 or 5 features are also required. That is the gestures, the facial expressions, the postures, proxemics, and the gaze, and the object handling, and spatial layout. All these things are considered in order to analyze discourse. That approach is called as multimodal discourse analysis. And then comes the mediated discourse analysis. That is another approach. So communication as a tool for taking action. That means focuses on the action, the cultural tools that make them possible. It means that we would like to use our language in such a way that some kind of action is expected. We are expecting that some kind of action may be taking place if the communication is successful. So therefore, our focus goes to action and the cultural tools that are employed in order to make these actions possible. So if such an approach is used, that is called as the mediated discourse analysis. And therefore, we can conclude the whole job by saying that communication is not just a matter of words, communication is a matter of action, communication is a matter of relationship and power, communication creates and recreates our social world. So, that is what one should go forward in order to understand what approaches are used in order to analyze the discourse, or we can say approaches to discourse analysis. So, that lecture is over now. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you have got some benefit out of that. I mean, you have understood a little bit of the introduction of approaches to discourse analysis. If so, do not fail to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and possibly if you can comment, I may be responding to that as well. So thank you for watching. Hope to see you in some next video.